Appreciate the struggles to better appreciate the rise. Appreciate the struggles to better appreciate the rise. Thanks for joining me. This is Motivation with Anya. Today we're touching on endometriosis and PCOS is real. I'm your host, Anya Charles, and joining me today is none other than a gynecologist, Dr. Charles. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles, for joining me today and touching on endometriosis and PCOS. We're trying to bring awareness on the topic, and we want to find out what it's like being in this field.
Thank you for inviting me. You want to know how it is to be in the field of gynecology?
Yes.
Well, that's a broad question.
Yes, it is.
But I think it starts with the love for medicine, the love for wanting to help. But gynecology and obstetrics in particular is a very intimate specialty, because you're dealing with people, and women in particular, and their partners sometimes, with issues that touch on very personal things, as in menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and other aspects, as you mentioned, polycystic ovaries and the endometriosis.
Yes. Okay. So in other words, you need to be very close with your patients. You develop that bond with them, so they will feel more comfortable when they come to you.
Of course, I think the behavior of physicians have changed dramatically.
Yes.
It used to be a very serious patient-doctor, a very formal relationship, and I think generally across the board, physicians have picked up more of an interactive style. Patients know a lot more. They're doing their investigations and their research, and they're coming for a discussion, a conversation, rather than just being dictated to. So I think it really does warrant a very personal approach, very comfortable, simple approach with persons, especially when they're dealing with long-standing illnesses.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about endometriosis and PCOS, you do see patients with this illness. I don't like to call it an illness, like I always say, the condition, because I don't like people to think like I'm ill or I'm not like a normal human being, because I can have children. It's just that during that period, those who suffer with it, they feel low, they have emotional problems, mental problems. Some of us have the physical problems in terms of the facial hairs. Sometimes we're very forgetful or we're tired. What would you say to your patients who come to you who has endometriosis or PCOS?
So you touched on something that makes sense. We don't call it an illness, don't label.
Yes.
It's a condition, and the thing about polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, and endometriosis is that they're both lifelong conditions, unfortunately. So it's not something we can fix in just one visit. And I think I tend to start off with education. I think it's very important that persons know what the problem is, because a lot of times persons are coming with a lot of erroneous information, preconceived ideas, and just wrong information. So I think the most important thing is to give background, give a good educational background, so that persons have a better understanding. I think once persons know what they're dealing with, they are more likely to adhere to the treatments that we suggest. I'm glad that you mentioned the psychological aspect, because the mind does get quite affected with these long-standing conditions. And I think that's one of the things we touch on as well, that we want persons to know we are aware that it causes sadness, it causes frustration, it causes sometimes depression, and we want to approach it from all aspects, not just the physical issue, but also the mental part of it as well.
Okay, what I can say on that especially is my doctor has given me medication, and she did, when I started it, she put me on a 6-month period. After the 6-month period, she did mention that because of the way it's working, I would have to be on it for a lifetime. To be very honest, I stopped going to those appointments because I personally feel like I'm less of a human being. I don't believe in medication, and I try my hardest to drink some local teas or herbs. I try to exercise, diet, do everything that is said except for taking the medication. What would you say to someone like myself who doesn't believe in medication, who doesn't believe in the treatments that the medical field would give to us patients?
I think as it relates to especially polycystic ovary syndrome, I say to patients, your best medication is really your dietary changes as well as exercise. And that alone, sometimes with nothing else, no medication at all, it fixes itself. That's polycystic ovaries. However, endometriosis is a little ticklish. It may not respond just as easily to lifestyle changes. And so there are patients who will require medication because the main difference between the endometriosis, and they're two separate entities, I want that to be very clear, but there are similarities. So they're lifelong and they both affect fertility and the lady's moods and other things like that. But when it comes to endometriosis, the pain that is associated it can be devastating. Persons sometimes can't even go to work. It's debilitating and it's demoralizing for them a lot of times. So there must be, at least initially, medication to soothe that pain and to help arrest the problem, slow it down a bit. And I think once she has gained some level of control, then maybe you can withdraw from the medication and put in more of your lifestyle changes. Now, I think that goes across for everybody. Whether you have a condition or not, if you eat right, you get enough rest and you exercise, it generally does well for your body. And I think there's no exception with any disease process or condition, as you prefer to call it.
Yes. Okay, well, what we're trying to do is bring awareness to endometriosis and PCOS. You find a lot of people would say that ladies are supposed to be ill or get cramps or menstrual pains during that time of the month. For me, I don't necessarily believe it because of the level of that pain that I'm feeling. I cannot imagine other people going through that month after month. It is true that certain women, they would get cramps, like normal cramps. But the extent of the pain that we feel, that's what I want to bring awareness to, especially. How would you go about helping us bring awareness? I mean, you deal with your patients, so you know the pain, you understand the extent of the pain we face. But for someone who doesn't know they have the condition, but they feeling the pain, how would you help us bring awareness to it for us to say, well, okay, you need to check it out. Well, maybe you could go to a doctor and you could get it examined, because we know the only way is for you to actually get the procedure done. But how can you assist me and the rest of the team in bringing awareness to that?
I think most women will go see a doctor if they're experiencing pain that surpasses the level of tolerance. And people have different tolerance levels, but most women will go. So I don't think it's something where we need to go to a person's home or we need to say, well, you need to come see a doctor. Women generally will go see someone if they're not feeling well. The pain that people experience during the menses can be separated into two big groups. Those who had it from the very beginning, which generally there isn't an underlying cause for it. It's just the whole chemistry of how the body responds when the period is there. And then there's pain because of other causes, which may develop later. And we're talking about things like the endometriosis. Now, that pain, when women describe it, it sounds like hell. And I think there's a lot of information available, a lot of the television ads, which may not necessarily be ours, but I think for the Ministry of Health, they can consider, and I think they have probably put information out in the wellness centers, and persons are generally aware that if I am having pain that is not allowing me to function, then I need to see someone, and most women do. So when they come, then we educate, we explore, because if someone comes with a complaint, you explore the history, explore the physical examination, and sometimes the additional tests to guide as to what may be the underlying cause and to offer treatment.
Okay, so what advice would you give to a patient who has endometriosis, a full-time job, a family to maintain? When I say a family, a significant other, and they don't want their job to be affected or to pass on that stress onto their significant other. What advice would you give a young lady, as a matter of fact, growing up, getting into that type of lifestyle with this condition?
So I think most women who come with painful periods and we think she may be having endometriosis, there's empirical management. So you give the oral contraceptive pill together with pain relief, what we call the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent. So that generally works for the majority of women. You will have a subset of women who will not respond, and then they require, of course, the intervention that you mentioned, looking into the tummy to see if if it is indeed endometriosis, so you can give them medication that is a lot stronger. Now, I see your focus is in trying to stay away from the medication, but for endometriosis, you really do require treatment. Otherwise, it gets worse and it puts her further into issues with probably not being able to have a baby and not being able to go to work, not being able to function. Sexual intercourse can be very painful. So I think, again, it is tackling it from an understanding point of view, where you explain what is happening and you offer the treatment, of course, with review. And it's not just one individual, so it's not just the gynecologist who manages. Sometimes you may need a pain specialist, sometimes you may need the counselor, the psychiatrist involved. And to approach it from a family point of view as well, sometimes writing a letter to her workplace so that they are aware that this lady is dealing with a condition which from time to time may make it challenging to come to work. And I think if we do that, we will have somebody who's better able to manage her condition and live with it in such a way that it does not debilitate her and affect her quality of life in general.
Now, funny you mentioned that. When I started the television show to bring awareness to endometriosis, someone did say to me, for females already, it's so difficult for us in the workplace where equal rights towards men. Imagine we now come in with a condition where we cannot even perform on the job. I believe that alone is just, it had me for a second. I honestly, I was like, wait a minute, you're very correct. Because here we are, we women, we're saying we have equal rights, we could do anything a man can do, and then we come with this condition where we have days we really cannot perform. I understand there will be days we can give 110, but then there are days where we can probably only give 30 or 40% of the job. How do we build not just awareness, how can we teach or educate the men, our men, to understand that it's not because we're ill, it makes us any less of a woman. Yes.
I think that's where groups come in and support groups come in. And again, with your partner coming to your visits with you so that they have a better understanding. I think traditionally women have kept their business private, even from their intimate partners. And if they don't know what is going on, clearly a man cannot assume to understand what a woman is feeling if he has not been educated. So I think if you include him, as in you bring him to the visit so he has a better understanding, and support him. So someone like yourself, young, with a condition like this, and you seem to have a very good understanding of it, you form a group. And that's so easy to do these days. With the way social media is going, you form a local group and you get the support, because a lot of times that's what is required. Because you see, these illnesses, or these, not illnesses, but conditions, these conditions are generally lifelong, and so they do require a place at least where persons can come together with similar characteristics and find ways of dealing with it. Support groups. Do you have a support group, by the way?
We do have something called Let's Talk Period.
Okay.
Another interviewee was speaking with me on, she was the one who actually started it, and I joined in on it. But what I find is from the time we have started bringing awareness to it, even a gentleman messaged me one time and he was like, he has a family member who has it and he doesn't know how to assist her. Like, she's probably in so much pain, and I can only imagine. For me, the most I could have done was, I have a calendar I follow. I sent him that calendar and I said to him, hey, these dots mean those days I cannot do anything. So for those days, this is when she needs the most support from you. And the rest of the days where it had a little flower or a little something, it just meant that I would be down, but I can still function. So not everyone knows they have calendars or they have apps that can assist us with endometriosis especially. But I still, for me, even if speaking with him, he did not understand. I could tell he did not understand completely what I was trying to say, because he even asked what type of support. I couldn't answer that question. I honestly couldn't answer that question, because they have days, the support I would need is to just be left alone. It's to just be curled up on the floor and to just cry on my own. Then they would have days where probably you could rub my foot, or you could stay there and pet my hair and make me feel like a little baby again. But I don't think men completely understand, no matter how much we try to, especially our partners, we try to involve them. They don't completely understand. I remember when I had my first surgery, my dad asked, what type of pain is that? Because she looks horrible. And the doctor who operated on me said to him, imagine if you take one of your testicles and you put it in an oven and you bang it.
Wow.
She said that's how bad the pain was. Because I had an emergency surgery, so it was horrible at that time. And when she used that, up to this day, my dad would still come and he would make some tea for me because he would understand. I don't want to scare other men and tell them that's what it is, but what do you think, as a female myself, I can share with other gentlemen?
I think, again, that goes back to the support group, because you're dealing with something which is intimate. So you don't want to just start a conversation with a man and talk about the periods. That may not be the best thing to do. But then if there's a support group, and the women come in with their partners, just as women do when they go to the doctors when they're pregnant and it's a happy time and people are going to the mass, you come and you sit and you have different activities and different ways of expressing and different storytelling and persons giving their experiences, and I think that will allow for it to become a lot more sensitized, and for men to get probably a better understanding. Now, to be fair to the men, then they don't have a female body, they don't have periods. But I think men are humans, and they, if well informed, will have a pretty good understanding. So I think the responsibility is everybody who's involved, the patient and her intimate partner and her friends and her family, and the support group and the doctors and the nurses. So I think wherever there's an opportunity to continue to educate, healthcare providers do so, and patients, of course, with the support of the physicians and the other healthcare providers, can form a group. And so from time to time you may have formal presentations where a healthcare provider comes in and gives a bit of teaching, and then of course for you, not just always in a designated setting, but to go out and do things, and I think it would actually foster not just the understanding, but the togetherness and just an outlet for those days when you're locked in, when you get better, to come together and share your stories.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charles. Actually, this conversation with you, because that's exactly what it was. It was uplifting for me as a patient as well. I know I was trying to educate everyone, but I was educating myself as well. And speaking with you actually gave me a lot of hope. It has a lot of ideas running through my mind. So I can say thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you. I do have to go on a very short break, but we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We have another guest. Thank you.
If you haven't checked out Ramjay's Auto Parts yet, what are you waiting for? We stock a wide assortment of older and newer model popular car and SUV parts. Suzuki, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda, Nissan, Mini Cooper, and lots more. That's not all, Ramjay's also stocks truck and heavy equipment parts. And if that won't help you, we also do heavy equipment rental to keep your downtime at a minimal. Ramjay's Auto Parts is located Masad Industrial Zone, Grocery. Contact us 450-0495 or 716-1400 or email ramj35@hotmail.com.
Welcome back to Endometriosis and PCOS is Real. I'm your host, Anya, and joining me today is awesome Robin Shalry White. Robin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And no problem. So Robin, let's just get right into it. Tell me about yourself. I see your logo on your shirt. Tell me about the Sister to Sister by Her Store.
Her Store.
Her Store.
Yes. So I'll just start a little bit about myself. I have a PhD in health promotion and behavior, which is pretty much public health. I specialize in sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender issues.
Wow.
So yes, it's a lot, it's a mouthful, but it's my heart's work. So
Very impressive.
I founded Histoire about 3 years ago. We just celebrated our third birthday.
Oh,
And
nice.
thank you. It is a collective of individuals in the Caribbean or have Caribbean heritage who help to promote sexual and reproductive health and rights for Caribbean women and girls primarily, but also addressing youth. In a nutshell, that's essentially what it is. And Histoire, so the H is for health, E is education and empowerment, R for research, and S for stories. And as we're going to get into the thick of things today, you'll hear that the stories is really what drives the purpose. Your story that we talked about a few days ago, my story that I'll talk about a little more later, and all the stories of the women and girls who experience issues, whether it's sexual and reproductive health issues, menstruation, etc., that can help educate and inspire others and even help inspire themselves when they see how far that they've come versus when they started. So Sister to Sister program is a virtual safe space program. The first phase of it was virtual, meaning that it was an online platform where young women and girls, well, women of all ages really, but the target was really addressing young women, come online twice monthly to engage in conversations about various sexual and reproductive health issues that affect them. The target was women in St. Lucia, however, we had women from all over the Caribbean joining, all over the world really. I think we even had Australia and Great Britain, a lot from the US. We had moderators and facilitators from all over, so it was really a collaborative effort.
Sounds super exciting.
It was exciting, and it was really a testament to how Histoire has grown and really what Histoire stands for. So it is continuing to grow now, and so now we have her Fleur coming up, which is...
Oh, nice. I love the name.
It's all her, it's everything her. And that's the Sister to Sister Safe Space Phase 2, which is the school tour, Let's Talk period, that will be going on and discussing more about throughout our session.
So we're super excited to announce the Let's Talk period school tour coming up. That's February.
Starting in February. Yes.
And we're bringing it into March because, as we know, March is Endometriosis and PCOS month. And since we're here to speak or bring awareness to endometriosis and PCOS, within your little chats on the internet,
Yes.
you will come across patients, because I mean they're still patients with endometriosis and PCOS.
Yes.
What's it like interacting with them?
For the most part, and I won't speak from a clinical perspective
Yeah.
because I'm sure you've had several, persons and physicians who've already addressed the clinical aspect of it. But from a social perspective and behavioral, my first inclination is that there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of stigma, and it really shouldn't be because this is both endometriosis and PCOS, and polycystic ovarian syndrome, are very common illnesses
Found
in women. An average of 1 in 10 women suffer from either of these two or both. And so that's why I talked about stories. If we only talk more about it to each other and our daughters, our friends, our cousins, partners even, I think the stigma and the shame will dissipate a bit. And so that's my first inclination. That's my first observation when dealing with patients or persons who experience both PCOS and endometriosis, is the shame of it. Also, they're not knowing that they have these issues. So they would describe all the symptoms. Someone like myself who's very familiar with it, I would recognize it, but I'm not going to diagnose. Obviously, I'm not a medical practitioner. So I would just let them talk about it, and it's a lot of distress. It's affecting their quality of life, it's affecting their job, their ability to have employment, to function at work, to function at home,
relationships as well.
their relationships, their sex lives. So it's just a lot of undue stress that they're experiencing, and I think that's where the piece about education comes in, because a lot of these women don't know, they haven't been diagnosed. So they may even say that they think they have endometriosis, or they've heard about this endometriosis thing or this PCOS that they think they may have it, and they're describing all the symptoms, but cost is sometimes a determinant factor for them to go to a doctor who
And
can
then for
diagnose
them
them.
to actually be diagnosed with endometriosis as well, they have to do the surgery. That too has a cost to it. So yeah. But why do you think, okay, for me, I'm going to keep it real. At first, I was embarrassed as well, especially when it came to having a period at a tender age. I remember being in school, not wanting the other students to know that I'm on my cycle. But in our adulthood, with suffering with endometriosis or PCOS, why do you feel other people are so embarrassed to talk about it? I mean, it's a condition. It's not like we're not sharing people with an STD or anything either, but it's not so severe to say that we have an STD or something we got from someone else. It's something that all women can suffer, but not every woman experience it. Not every woman knows what it's like to have terrible period pains or to pass out during a cycle. Not all women know that, but they have a handful of us who actually cannot speak of our period because it's so horrible. We feel like we're not human. Why do you feel most women are so afraid to speak about it? Why don't we have a voice in it?
There are two issues going on. One is that menstruation is just taboo, period. No pun intended. But it's not only limited to St. Lucia. This is around the Caribbean, this is even around the world.
Yeah.
I do believe that the word menstruation or period, one of them, came from some Indian word that means taboo. From my understanding, I'll have to fact check that, but that's what I was told.
Yeah.
So it's by nature the fact that we menstruate. I mean, if you even go to the biblical reason why we're menstruating and supposed to be procreating, is because of Eve's sin, Eve's great sin, Adam and Eve, right?
Funny enough, the person before you, my interview before you, she said that same thing. She's like, oh man, I have to suffer because of Adam and Eve. And it is so true. Like, it goes back to biblical times.
And it's not that we have to suffer because of it, it's just that oral tradition has been passed down. And people tend to not realize the impact of culture and how it affects our beliefs and our value systems. And there are some things that we internalize without even recognizing it. And so, even in you saying that it's not as serious as an STD, there's some cultures where STD is very normalized. That's, oh, I have another one and I get the antibiotics for it and I keep it moving. Oh, it's not that big a deal, but in our culture it is, and it's something taboo. So menstruation, unfortunately, is taboo. Just menstruation at the most basic level. When you get it, when you don't get it, any abnormalities with it, and then you add the layer of PCOS and reproductive disorders, fibroids, endometriosis, etc. that's coupled with your menstruation. And so a woman now has to navigate through already being experiencing a menstruation or menstruating, which is considered taboo, and now having something wrong with her body. Anyone who has something wrong with their body, man, woman, child, any human, feels inadequate on some level. Feels that this is something that I have to rise above to even be able to admit to myself and then talk about. On the other side, we have them not being educated about it. So when you're not fully educated about an issue, you just see something happening that's not normal, or you don't know that it's normal, but you think you have an inclination, maybe it's not so normal, but it has not been taught to you that when XYZ happens, you go to see a doctor, you explain to them this way. There's a limited health literacy issue that we have where people may be experiencing issues and don't have the language to explain to their doctors what is going on.
That's actually funny, very funny you say that, because there was this, I'm not sure if you came across it, there was a meme, doctors or someone in the medical field came up with. They said if you come to a doctor and you say you have a headache, they're going to do every test to see why you have a headache. But you cannot expect them to look at your the rest of your body if you come and you just say you have a headache. So for someone who isn't educated, let's say during the cycle, they not observant. So they just know they have this pain a week before they cycle, and that will not even cross somebody's mind if they don't know. A week before your cycle, you're experiencing pain. You go into the doctor and just like, keep having pain in my ovaries or pain. The first thing I remember when I went to the doctor, that's the first thing I said, I have a pain in my ovaries, and they were like, how do you know it's your ovaries?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's my ovaries, but it's somewhere down there. I know that's my ovaries because I went to school. So with that said, when they tested it, they realized it was a cyst. But it didn't drive them to go ahead and check to see if I had endometriosis as well. And it took some time. It actually took an emergency surgery for me to find out it was endometriosis, and at that time I was already stage 4.
Wow.
So even if we go to the doctor, and because we're not educated or we don't know what signs to look for, we don't know what to say to the doctors. So it may not necessarily be a doctor's fault that they misdiagnose us, but then again, do they really go all out and they look at everything? Because we come in and we say we have a headache, we come in and we say we're dizzy, or we have a pain somewhere, but we don't say the full thing. We don't say it's a week before our period, or so I don't know. A lot of people do shun doctors, or the medical field I should say, because they don't necessarily take the necessary steps we want them to take.
Right.
But we also have to understand we cannot really blame them because of the information we give to them. Now the mere fact that a lot of people are not educated when it comes to endometriosis or PCOS or even fibroids, IBS, like all these things, they get mixed up, they get confused because again we go to the doctors and we say one thing and we don't say the whole thing, but it's sometimes not even our fault, like I said. I remember,
especially if you're in pain.
Especially if you're in pain. I remember someone once said they had endometriosis and they were diagnosed with IBS. But again, the doctors didn't look to see if they had endometriosis in the bowels, which is what the individual had. So they have stories like that, which is why I'm so excited to hear about your online chat. Because again, someone who, like I said, isn't educated, they don't know, being in that group chat, you understand, you hear other people's stories and you're like, wait, I have that pain, or I have this symptom. Could it be that? Okay, so can I have this conversation with my doctor? And for me, I believe doctors especially, they need to be more open and willing to have this conversation with their patients. Most times you go and you hear, doctor, I have a pain here, they check us out and they go, but that's not it. That's not the results we're looking for as a patient especially. But with Histoire, I love that name.
Thank you.
With Histoire, we could go out and we could research for ourselves. We could hear the stories, we could look up things, and that, I don't know, I want to commend you on that. How did you even come up with this?
So the story is kind of long with it, but I will keep it short for the purpose of this program. So as I mentioned that I have a PhD in public health, I was in St. Lucia doing research on how Caribbean women, St. Lucians in particular, perceive their risk for HIV and STIs, which is sexually transmitted infections. And the reason behind this is because we have, Caribbean women have the second highest rates of HIV in the world. And knowing that, perception, which is what we're talking about here, even perception and knowledge of that can determine or guide your behavior. So I was interested in understanding or exploring more about how do our women interrelate these factors with their relationships, how do they deal with it when getting into a relationship, navigating, my partner would like to stop using condoms after 3 months, what's the process like, what kinds of conversations are occurring, are people having consequent partners, partners at the same time, are women dating men, are they dating women, are they, so all these layers. And the stories that came out of that research were so much more than I bargained for. I was looking at HIV and STIs more specifically, and the things that came out were what we're talking about, women having issues of just persistent bleeding or issues with the pill. They don't have the correct form of birth control. They don't know of other forms available here. All they know of is the pill. And this is an example, so I'm not speaking in general, but for an example, knowing of only the pill, and the pills, this particular pill is making them sick. One pill, and so they ban all pills. The birth control makes me sick, and so I don't use birth control.
I am so sorry. No.
And then the condoms, the partner may not like it, or they having allergic reaction to the latex.
Oh my God, you're speaking about.
And so they're not using the condoms.
Yeah.
And you're not on birth control, you're not using the condoms. You want to explore your sexuality. So you either now feel limited to this one partner who turns out to be abusive. That's the other layers that kept coming out, a lot of abuse. And you cannot leave. You feel like, if I leave, I'm going to be a hoe because I'll have another partner and then another one. Leave the devil. Why would I leave the devil I know for the devil I don't know? Right? So I'm just going to stay in this abusive relationship because it's not that bad. He ain't kill me yet. He's not going to kill me. He ain't mad. Right? It's just a little tap here and there, this and that. If I do this right, he will act right. And so you're not protecting yourself. And these are all layers that influence why we're more susceptible to getting HIV. And so it's all interrelated. Yeah, it may not be specifically menstruation, but that birth control, the idea behind using protection was to prevent pregnancy. It was not with the focus of STI prevention, because everyone assumes their partner is clean. And that word clean, I don't like it, because having an STI does not mean that you're dirty.
Exactly.
So their priority was pregnancy prevention, which eliminates that condom idea immediately. And so then we're having the pill talk, birth control, oral contraceptives, the patch, the shot. At the time, the patch was still available. IUDs. These things were more or less unheard of.
I don't know, but to me, a lot of these, do you get that in the chat? The side effects? Because like you said, girl, I can tell you, those pills have sent me to, I have spent nights and weeks in hospital trying to get the right contraceptive. And some of the actual condoms, I am too allergic to them. So you would find that's a problem.
The back of the condoms, or even the brand per se, and see, okay, so Durex is a no, Trojan is a no, latex, not latex, lifestyles. There are so many different types that you may find an off-brand or the one condom, or a certain brand that may not have that one ingredient that causes irritation. It may not be an allergy, but it may just be this irritation because of this chemical that they're using in most of the other condoms. The good news is that there's a lot of more natural condoms on the market. Sustain brand is a good one. Vegan condoms even. I think Target sells so many condoms, but unfortunately Central doesn't have many of them. But they do have the lambskin available in St. Lucia. So there are options for women who
like you saying it, and I'm still like,
the female condom has no latex.
What it did to me then. I remember the pain I was in. Do I really want to go and try something?
If it is a latex allergy or an irritation to latex, or it could be the lubrication that was used on the condom. It could be anything. But what I would suggest is trying a non-latex condom if you think you have a latex allergy, and see what happens then. The female condom is also a great alternative. It's non-latex, it's actually really, really good alternative, So that's to answer that part of the question. The second part, endometriosis.
Endometriosis, well, sex on the whole.
Sex on the whole.
Yeah, sex on the whole.
So not doing it because you said a statement that I remember. You said that you are afraid of
going through the pain during the actual intercourse and then having to suffer with the side effects of the condom that a patient may be allergic to.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of alleviates that if you actually find the condom that
yes,
works.
so if you find the perfect condom, then afterwards it's not a problem. But it's still, endometriosis on the whole.
There is pain regardless.
Yes.
Right. So I think sex is a pleasurable thing, and so if there's as much as you can minimize the pain for sex, I would recommend that.
I think too, like the men, like I keep saying, like men need to be more educated on endometriosis or PCOS, both actually. But if you have a partner who would ask you, are you in pain? If you have a partner who would ask you, like, are you okay? Especially during it, not to take away from the moment, of course, but during it, you have someone who actually cares about you, then it might just be a little easier I know my partner and I, like, we would speak about it. I would let him know, like, hey, I have endometriosis. Although he doesn't understand what it is, I know he doesn't understand what it is, like most men. But during our intimate moment, I would speak with him. I would let him know, like, it's going to be painful. But then, because of the type of person he is, he would ask during it, like, you know, are you okay? Is it hurting you? I think a lot of men need to understand that during the actual intercourse, and probably in your groups, you haven't heard anything like that in your groups, like
They talk about
I think men need to be a little more sensitive towards women during it. Because I understand you all want to have the full blown, I get that, but we're still human. We're still girls that go through pain, and we still want to cry and not hurt their feelings in the process. So you find a lot of women will probably take the pain not to hurt their partner's feelings. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Speak about it. I don't know. I find speaking about it made it a lot easier for me. Imagine when we started the show, that's something else. If I didn't know of your sister. I didn't know of that before. But hearing the fact that other women speak about the issue so openly, it makes me feel better. Because when I started, I was like, okay, I want to speak about it. I want to bring awareness to it. But it was something to help me build myself as well, in terms of being more comfortable with my condition. At first I was like, I've heard of everybody having endometriosis or PCOS. I hardly ever heard of anybody having both. I read on the internet, they said yes, people could have both, but I never came across anybody with both. So it was, for me, it was bringing me down. And when we started bringing awareness, the amount of people who came forward, I think it's uplifting, and that's what I appreciate about it. Whether it's fibroids or IBS or endometriosis, the mere fact that you could find a group of girls or females rather you could relate to, that's gonna make life so much easier. I mean, I don't know them from anywhere, but they're my sisters. They're already my sisters because we're suffering together. We're going through this illness together. Is that how you feel about your group? Like, that's your period sisters?
But the fact that we don't only talk about periods, so it's all sexual and reproductive health issues. So our first chat in March was about endometriosis, and September, which is PCOS month, we talked about PCOS. So it's in between, but they can always reach out, they can always connect with each other and have that support group. So that's what system. Especially in St. Lucia, where we at the time did not have an actual association for endometriosis and or PCOS.
You would be surprised the amount of girls in St. Lucia that actually suffer with that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. It's really,
it would be, because if you think of the rate of people in the world that have it would beg the question that why wouldn't St. Lucia have it as well? And what we brought to the fore was, okay, women are suffering with this issue, and cost is one factor, deterrent to being able to even get diagnosed and then treated. Support is also another deterrent. You talked about having a supportive partner. The truth is, if you're just not educated about it or don't understand, even some men can't even wrap their heads around a regular menstruation cycle, far less adding endometriosis and or PCOS on top of it. So that education is paramount. So having that in the group also was helpful, and men would be observing the conversations in the group. They wouldn't speak, but they'll come and tell me after the fact, like, I learned so much from your chat, and I did not know women were suffering like this. And some would even tell me that their sisters or their girlfriends' quality of life has increased so much because of the chats that they're having, that we're having, sorry. And has they found resources. That was the whole purpose of it, to connect women with resources already available on the island. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Family planning exists. All the health centers and all how many health districts we have, they exist already. There's so many doctors, so many gynecologists. There is no reason that a woman should be suffering in St. Lucia and not have access to the care that she needs. There are doctors who will do it pro bono. I'll tell you when you have the money right for them, because you should not be suffering like this.
You shouldn't. And that's the point.
That's
we need to bring the point across.
That's it. That pain, that level of pain is unnecessary, and that really increases your quality of life. And so, to answer your question, yes, I do feel that we have that support. I have PCOS, I don't have endometriosis, but I myself have learned so much about endometriosis through the group and seeing the struggles, and I'm like, wow, you know, there's the PCOS sisters, as we call it, because PCOS is what is cystic ovarian syndrome, so it's cyst. So it is so corny, but it's
I actually really like the way you guys come up with your stuff.
No, it's not the sisters.
They
No,
know
there's a group. It's a global group. If you go on Instagram or on Facebook, you'll see sisters spelled
nice.
CYSTERS, or similar hashtag. Yeah, so there's a global network of sisters that you can find for PCOS support. Endo Warriors is the hashtag for endometriosis, as you know, and there's a global group of support for Endo Warriors.
I didn't know about the sisters.
Yeah.
Sisters.
So the issue that was occurring is that it's very easy for any condition, whether it's cancer or endometriosis, PCOS, STIs, pregnancy. It's easy for anyone to go on Google and get the information they need, right? The reason that Sister to Sister came about was really to bring people together, bring these women together who are suffering from these issues, to connect with each other, get the resources already available to them on the island, and to provide that support, that network of support for each other. In St. Lucia, that is really what's important. So whilst we did have many people from the US joining us, all over the Caribbean joining us, they also lent support to the St. Lucians on board. So as I mentioned, I do think you know Julia. I'm not sure if you know Julia. She is the president of the Barbados
Oh, the
PCOS
Endometriosis
Association. And she's also on our team. She was our program assistant for reproductive health.
I've heard of her. I don't know her. I've heard of her.
So she was instrumental in developing the curriculum for the program, moderating the chats as well with me and some other professionals around the world. And St. Lucia, we had Dr. Paris on board moderating chat, Dr. Remy, who does, she's a surgeon, she deals with breast cancer a lot, but all these issues intersect. So she deals with breast cancer, so she deals with a lot of women's issues.
Yeah.
She deals with breast cancer, so she deals with a lot of men's issues. Men get breast cancer too, so she's very educated. So she's a doctor, she's educated, but on that level, you know, it was just connecting even professionals with laypersons, with women, with men, you know, men coming out and saying, okay, now I know more about this, now I know how to support this individual. People who don't have the resources, who live in the outer districts, for instance, saving their money or trying to figure out a way, okay, I will come to Castries to see this specific doctor because she's a specialist in endometriosis, rather than go again to the health center and just get the cover up or, you know, masking, getting the pill. And so that's another issue. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show. That's something that was brought to the fore as well. And we discussed it at length in 2 or 3 chats. PCOS. There really is no one-size-fits-all treatment, just like endometriosis. What you would find a lot of doctors doing is saying to just go on the pill to regulate your period. When you really want to address the underlying issues of your PCOS, you will find out that that's really masking it because you're not ovulating when you're on birth control. You're not ovulating, and the issue with PCOS is that your ovaries, every time you're trying to ovulate, it just forms these follicles, or which they call cysts, on your ovaries. Underdeveloped eggs, pretty much, that just, they could rupture, they just formulate. They're not cancerous, so a lot of people think, oh no, you have cysts on your ovaries, you must have cancer. That's not what it means. It's really just every time you're supposed to ovulate, these eggs just form. So these are your 2 ovaries, and you just have, so this is one ovary that may have multiple cysts. And also the ovary expands in size. So I think it's my left ovary, which is like 3 or 4 times the size that it's supposed to be in. These are all the issues. And your ovaries also release hormones throughout your body. They help regulate hormones throughout your body. And the imbalance of the hormones is also an underlying issue. So you have the weight gain in your stomach. And all these other external factors and internal factors going on. And getting on birth control is just a band-aid. It is. And whilst it may work, whilst it may do the job for a lot of women saying, okay, I just want to get on my life, I just want to see that period come every month, so I feel like I'm okay and at least I'm bleeding, which the main benefit of being on birth control for PCOS is that it helps flush out the endometrium.
Now with PCOS
That's it.
as well, when you actually go and you do the surgery, some people they drain the cyst, some of them they laser it out. They don't say to the patient that it can come back.
Yeah.
And when it comes back, sometimes it comes back with little ones all over the ovaries. Because I remember that's how it happened with me. I had mine drained, and then in like a matter of 5 years, I just had these little cysts all over my ovaries. And I had the drain on my left side, my right side got affected with the little cysts all over. So again, I mean, we cannot exactly say we're going to curb endometriosis or PCOS, but we have to bring awareness to it, because like you said, the weight gain, it's for us facial hair with PCOS, and those with both, you have to control the PCOS before you control the endometriosis,
And trying to do it at the same time as well.
that's a mess. Some people with endometriosis, mentally they drain, they can't do it. Sometimes you cannot get out of bed. So again, we cannot curb it. That's a lifetime illness condition. I don't need to call it an illness. It's a lifetime condition. But there are others out there that actually suffer with it. You may not find everybody coming out and openly talking about it. We wish more people probably would, to bring more hope to women. But it's going to be okay, and that is what I want everybody to know. It is going to be okay. That I had a doctor on with me, and she was like, "Do you have endometriosis or PCOS?" I'm like, "Yes." She said, "You don't look like it." And I'm like, today I felt horrible. Interviewing you, I was horrible. I wanted to throw up. I was dizzy this morning, and I came in and I heard her say, "You don't look like you have an illness," and that made me feel so much better. That I could mask it on the inside, like I could come on the outside, so like I could mask it, I could smile with you. And that's what it is. They have other women out there, they're living their lives, they have relationships, they have families, they go to jobs, and they're career women. So there is hope with endometriosis or PCOS. I mean, I want to go as far as saying even those with fibroids and IBS, there is hope. Because you find people who even have STIs and STDs, they live in normal lives. So why do we have to feel like we're so broken? For me, I know the mental breakdown, how real that is. But after like the week is gone, you get back to yourself. You realize it was okay. There was this time, there was a meme as well. The meme said, why am I crying over this guy so much? And a week later it's like, oh, it was just my period. Yeah, because like it makes you feel like you're a little weaker than you're supposed to be. You know you're strong. I know I'm strong. But then when that kicks in, I don't know where my strength goes. My strength keeps me in bed. My strength is gone. I have a son. Imagine waking up with my son every morning. Some mornings I cannot get out of bed and then he wants to jump on me. I still have to be a mother. I cannot say, hey, mommy has endometriosis, step aside. Life goes on, and I think that's what's most important, especially from this show, this television show, bringing awareness to it. What I wanted most was people to understand that you're going to be fine. Even if it's a lifetime illness, you're going to be fine. I appreciate you so much having that television online program. I definitely going to join. I imagine a while ago I spoke to her about the Let's Talk period. When she asked me about it, I said we had the Let's Talk period because I had already spoken to you about it. And so I joined in. And we have a school tour coming up. I'm so excited. Please look out for our school tour starting in February. These things, bringing awareness to it, bringing hope to it, it's empowering. And women, I believe, should reach out to others, each other, and be that breath of fresh air.
Not a level of support.
Yes, and that's what you are. You're a level of support for all of us. You have PCOS. I would have never thought you had PCOS. You came in there, you were laughing, you were having a good time with us, and I wouldn't know you have an illness. And my story now is, there was this girl who was like, Anya, I didn't know you had endometriosis or PCOS when you were in school. I just thought you had a really good body. I was like, thank you, but no. I was more developed because I was ill. But thank you, no. But my body, you see, things happen. Like you change so much. It's not funny. But you must just appreciate where you are. You must appreciate the stages you go through, because today you're going to be down, tomorrow you're going to be up, and then when you're up you realize when you were down it was nothing. So, and that's what I want people, I want women to understand, especially men. Be out there to support us, please. Brothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, boyfriends, husbands, sons, support us. But women, everything is going to be fine. You are going to be alright. We suffer with it, we have it, and we live a normal life. Thank you so much for joining us, Robin. This was an amazing show. I am truly grateful that I met you through this. I wish I met you sooner for doing all of that sister thing. Her store and her floor. What's it?
Huffler. You know, bringing awareness to menstrual health. And
so you can look out for it. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Definitely.
Appreciate the struggles to better appreciate the rise.